All right, so now if we go back into our FlashChat app, so if we go to the project folder on the desktop, and then remember always once you've got pods added, we're going to be accessing the Xcode workspace that has the white icon as opposed to the one that we normally use, which has a blue icon. So go ahead and double click on FlashChat.exe workspace to open up your FlashChat project that has the pods incorporated, and you can expand the FlashChat project, and you can see that we've got a model, a view, and a controller with a whole bunch of related files in there. And also, if you expand the pod section, you'll be able to see all of the pods that we've incorporated into our project. So that's all well and good, and that's all been very successful. The next step is to integrate Firebase into our project. So in order to do that, we're going to head over to our appdelegate.swift file. And the first thing that we have to do when we want to use any of the pods, if you remember, is to import the module. So we're going to write the keyword import, and then we're going to write Firebase. So now we can tap into the powers of Firebase. And the first thing that we want to do is to connect up our app and configure the Firebase database. So to do that, we're going to write fear app, so the Firebase application, .configure. And that means that when our app first starts up, so remember when you first launch your app, the first file that gets called into use is the app delegate. And inside this method called application did finish launching with options, this part of the code gets called before anything else happens in our app. So every single time you open an app before you go to any of the other screens, this is the first method that gets triggered. And in here, we want to configure our Firebase application. So once that's done, we want to save some example data to our brand new Firebase database, just to test out and see if it works. So in order to do that, we're first going to create a constant called myDatabase, and it's going to be set to a fear database, so Firebase database.reference. So this is basically a reference to a brand new database within our Firebase. So now I'm going to use this database reference to set a new value into my database. And that value is just going to be a simple message saying we've got data. So now if I go ahead and run my app, now I don't even care what my app does. It does nothing at the moment other than having a pretty design, because we haven't given it any code other than to initialize and configure a new Firebase database and to save a little bit of data to that database. So to check our data, we have to go over back to our browser. And in our Firebase console, we're going to head over to the database tab. So here you'll be able to see all the data that's contained in your database. And you can see that despite writing some code to save data into our database, nothing has happened. Our database still contains nothing or null. So why is that? Well, if we have a look over to our rules section for our real-time database, you can see that we've still got the default security rules in place. And the default rules specify that users must be authenticated in order to read and write into our database. So the authentication cannot be null or cannot be nil in order to both read and write. And that makes our database a little bit more secure, so that you don't have random people accessing and writing to your database. But for now, because we haven't implemented the authentication, the register and login parts of our app, this is preventing our data from being written into our database. So we're just going to go ahead and modify this part after the semicolon so that we change the read rule to true so that anybody can read and write. And then we're going to change the write part to true as well. And remember that there's a comma between the read is true and write is true. And then you can go ahead and just click publish to publish these new rules. And Firebase will warn you that your security rules are pretty much just public. Anyone can read and write to your database. But no worry, because nobody knows about our database at the moment. once we finish our app and we're ready to upload it to the App Store, we're going to change these rules so that they're more secure. But for now, all we want is to receive some data from our app. So if we head back over to our application and we stop and run the app again, then we're going to try to set this value to our database once more. So app is now running. So if we have a look over here, you can see that in our database, we've passed in the message, we've got data. So success, wahey. And there you have it. You've created your very first cloud-based database and you've saved some data from your app into your database. So in the next lesson, we're going to be working on authentication and setting up our registration screens so that we can register some new users and make our app just a little bit more secure so that we have registered users using it.